Are you following?
Yes, ma'am.
Sahas, let us see an example. Let us try to solve a numerical based on this concept. If a simple pendulum has a time period T1 when on the Earth's surface and T2 when taken to height R above the Earth's surface. When taken to a height R above the Earth's surface. Okay, let me explain you, which is given in your book. When a simple pendulum is on the surface of the Earth, it is found to have a time period T1. And then when it is taken to a height R above the surface of the Earth, it is seen to have a time period T2. And now what is the value of T2 by T1? What is the ratio of T2 and T1? That is the question. If you can see here, R stands for radius of the Earth. So, a simple pendulum is taken to a height equal to radius of the Earth. And at this height, value of time period is T2. But when the same simple pendulum is on Earth, its time period is T1. So what is the ratio of T2 by, what is the ratio of T2 and T1? Now here, length of the pendulum is constant, right? So if I consider T1 is equal to 2 pi root L by G and T2 is 2 pi root L by GH. At this height, GH is the new acceleration due to gravity, and you very well know that G value decreases as we go up. G value decreases as we go up. Now I want the ratio of T2 by T1. So I can write it as 2 pi root L by GH divided by 2 pi root L by G. So if the constants are cancelled, then you will have a value root over G by GH. Now what is the new value of acceleration due to gravity at a height h which is equal to r? At h is equal to r, what is the new acceleration due to gravity? Which expression you are supposed to use? The new acceleration due to gravity at any height above the surface of the Earth is given by the expression r by r plus h whole square. And this becomes g into r by r plus h means r again, because we have taken it to a height r whole square. Now this is g into r by 2r whole square. R and r gets cancelled. 1 by 2 whole square, 1 by 4. So I get a new acceleration due to gravity g by 4, which means at a height equal to radius of the Earth, acceleration due to gravity will be 4 times lesser than its original value. So the new gravity will have a value g by 4. Now if I substitute that value here, so T2 by T1 becomes root over G divided by G by 4. G and G gets cancelled out and you will have a root 4 which is equal to 2. So finally you can write T2 is to T1 is equal to 2 is to 1. Students, please respond whether you have understood this numerical or not.
Ma'am, could you please explain it once again?
Definitely. See, the question is on the surface of the Earth, a simple pendulum is having a certain time period. If it is taken to a certain height, I mean a height where the height is equal to radius of the Earth, which is h is equal to r. Now at that height, what is the time period of the simple pendulum is the question. So actually, when you analyze the situation, you can understand pretty well that as G value decreases as we go above the surface of the earth, time period value decreases because time period is seen to be inversely proportional to acceleration due to gravity. So as G decreases with height, there is a chance that T increases. That is one way of analyzing the question, and mathematically to find. This is the expression for time period on the surface of the earth. And this is the time period at a height h. So I'm taking value of G to GH. And see, the length of the pendulum is not changing. So L is same in both the cases. Now the question is, what is the ratio of T2 by T1? So I have considered T2 by T1 here. And they have these values. When the constants gets cancelled out, you will be left with root G by GH, where G is acceleration due to gravity and GH is acceleration due to gravity at a height h. Now, this is a we are supposed to calculate acceleration due to gravity at a given height. So we are considering h equals to r because that is what given in the numerical. Pendulum is taken to a height equal to radius of the earth. Now, what is the new value of G there? So new value of G can be found by using this expression. You have learned it in session 3. So this is the expression to find new value of G at a height h. So when you make simplifications, you get the new value of G to be 4 times lesser than original acceleration due to gravity. And now when I substitute it here in this place, so G and G gets cancelled out, I'll be left with root 4 is 2. So T2 by T1 is equal to 2. Or if I have to express in terms of ratio, T2 is to T1 is equal to 2 is to 1. Arnav, did you understand?
Yes, ma'am.
Do not hesitate. Are you sure you understood?
So, ma'am, it is taken above the height of, from the earth, it is taken to a height which is equal to the radius of earth.
Exactly.
Okay,
And
ma'am.
Arnav, we have seen 2 formulae to calculate the new acceleration due to gravity at a given height. One formula is, one formula can be used in any case, but one formula can be used when h is very much less than r. If you can remember, and I have used the first one because that can be used for any height h. So I have taken that and found that new acceleration due to gravity value is 4 times lesser than the original one. So shall I proceed to the other concept? Please respond. Arnav, clear? Bhumika and Sahas? Good. So the next concept we are going to learn is a very revolutionary concept in understanding the planetary motion. So it's been of great interest from the beginning to understand how planetary objects will be moving and how are they regulated and many things which are hidden behind the motion of planetary objects. The very first theory is given by a Greek person, Ptolemy, and he has given a theory called geocentric theory, assuming that Earth is at the center and all other planets, including Sun, is revolving around the Earth. So for many years, it's been accepted, it's been understood that we are at the center and all other planets, including Sun, are revolving around the Earth. It's been accepted for many years. Then a heliocentric theory is given, but which is not accepted for very long, and that theory is given by Copernicus. So Copernicus gave heliocentric theory, whereas Ptolemy gave geocentric theory. Helio means sun. So Copernican theory or heliocentric theory says that sun is at the center and all other planets are revolving round the sun in circular orbits of different radii. This is what said by Copernicus. So though it is not accepted by the people for many years, then Tycho Brahe started to observe the planetary motion, and he's very well known because he's able to calculate the motion of the planets without telescope. He had made great assumptions, or he had made great observations without using telescope. And then these ideas and these observations are studied further by his assistant called Kepler, and he actually systemized all the conclusions, and that is given in the name Kepler laws of planetary motion. So the final, and which is very much accurate when it comes to understanding planetary motion, is actually given by the scientist Johannes Kepler. And we are going to now study it in the name of Kepler's laws of planetary motion. Just like how you have laws that define or that make you understand the motion of objects, Kepler laws will help us to understand the motion of planetary objects. I mean planets particularly. And of course, you have to remember that this Kepler laws of planetary motion is in accordance with the heliocentric theory given by Copernicus. Kepler's laws of motion. There are actually 3 laws under this concept. The first law is named. The first law is named as law of orbits. Before I talk about what exactly does this law of orbit tell you, I have to make you understand that there is a geometric structure which is called eclipse. Sorry, ellipse. I'm very sorry. This is called ellipse. And this ellipse will be having 2 radius, a longer radius and a shorter radius. This longer radius is called as major axis, and this shorter one is called minor axis. Now, they can also be called as major radius and minor radius. So ellipse will be having 2 radii, major radii and minor radii, or it can also be called as major axis and minor axis. Actually, these 2 points are called as vertices, and these 2 points are called as co-vertices. So my dear students, I repeat it once again. The kind of geometric structure you are looking on the board is called as ellipse. And then it will be having 2 radii, one major and one minor. The longer radius is called major radius or major axis. The shorter radius is called minor axis or minor radius. Now an ellipse will have 2 main points on the major axis, and they are called as foci. So there are 2 points. There will be 2 points in an eclipse located on the major axis, and we call them as foci. They're called as foci. And this is how they will be located on either side of the minor axis and will be located on the major axis. Okay. So Kepler said that his first law states that every planet will be revolving around the sun in an elliptical orbit, not circular, because Copernicus said that they are circular orbits, but then Kepler has modified it to elliptical orbits. So every planet is found to revolve around the sun in elliptical orbits. And where is the position of the sun? The sun will be at one of its foci. So every planet revolves in elliptical orbits around the sun, with the sun at one of its foci. Is that understood? If this is a planet will be seen rotating around the sun in elliptical orbits, and the sun will be at either of the focus, either here or here. So for this planet, sun is located at this focus. For other planet, it can be at a different focus. But definitely sun will be seen at one of the foci of the elliptical path. Is that understood? This is exactly what Kepler has said. Did you understand what is the first law of Kepler laws? Which is called law of orbits, and will be defining the shape of the orbit and the position of the sun in the orbit. Arnav? Sahas?
Yes, ma'am.
And then comes, this is just a theory. It is enough if you can understand what is meant by an ellipse, what 2 points, where will be the two foci located in the ellipse. That is enough if you understand those points. You can easily understand what is this first law. And then coming to the second law, it speaks about areas. So this is actually, the second law is called as law of areas. This is elliptical orbit of a planet. Let us consider major axis and minor axis. Sun is here. And let us suppose this is the planet and it is at position A. P is the planet and we are actually naming the position as A. Okay. Let us suppose for a given time, I am considering some time, and after that time, planet is seen in this position. The line joining sun and the planet is called as radius vector. The line joining sun and the planet is called radius vector. And you can see the radius vector keeps moving, and after a certain time, it is at B. Now, what is the area covered by this radius vector? I can say it as SAB. Isn't it? I repeat, initially planet is seen at this position A. After a certain time, it is seen at position B, which means the radius vector has swept this complete area and reached this position. So in a time t, let the area covered by this radius vector is given as SAB. Now I'll consider 2 points. Now this is the radius vector here joining sun and the planet when it is in the position D. After a certain time, the planet will be seen at position C and the radius vector can be shown in this way. If for a while I can ignore this major axis, then you can clearly understand this is the area when the planet has moved from D to C, the area covered by this radius vector is area under SCD. Is that understood so far? I haven't actually told you anything. I'm just trying to make you understand. When the position of planet changes, how will we consider the area covered by this radius vector? So when it is at position A and then move to position B, the area covered by this radius vector is given as area under this SAB. And similarly, when radius vector has changed from D to C, the area covered by this radius vector is given by the area under SCD or SDC. Now, let us suppose that equal time is taken to move from A to B and to move from D to C. I mean to say, for the radius vector to move from A to B, it took time t. This is an assumption. And we also consider that the same time is also taken for the planet to move from D to C. Which means that radius vector is covering some areas in a given time, and it is found that it will cover equal areas in equal intervals of time. I repeat, radius vector, I mean the line joining the sun and the planet will cover equal areas in equal intervals of time. The time taken by the planet to reach from A to B is equal to the time taken by the planet to go from D to C. Now, in this case, the area covered by this radius vector from A to B is equal to the area covered by radius vector when it moves from D to C, which means the areas covered in this time will be equal because it is taking equal time to cover these areas. I repeat once again. I'm just finding an easy way to explain you once again. Nothing than that. See, an object is initially at position A, and then after a certain time, let us suppose it is at B after a certain time T. Or say, for example, I consider it as 6 months. Also, at some point of time, it is at position D and went to C again in 6 months of time. The position of the planet has changed from D to C in 6 months' time. Here also from A to B, it took 6 months. When you observe the areas covered by this radius vector, this is the area covered, which is enclosed in SABS. The area which is enclosed by SABS is the area covered by the radius vector in 6 months. And when you consider this situation, the area which is covered here, the area which is enclosed between CSDC is the area covered by the radius vector in 6 months of time. And Kepler observed that these two areas, area SAB is equal to area SDC, which means that the radius vector sweeps equal areas in equal intervals of time. Take another example, like it is at a position 1 and after 6 months it is seen at position 2. This also took 6 months. So the area enclosed when it moves from 1 to 2 is the area enclosed between 2S1, 2. This is something like this. 1 is here, 2 is here, S is here. Now this is the area enclosed in 6 months of time. So I consider this as area swept by radius vector because it is the radius vector which moved. As such, when you consider equal intervals of time, you will see that the radius vector covers equal areas also. Please come out if you are not understand or if you have stuck somewhere. But please respond some or the other thing so that I can understand whether you understood or not.